Welcome to the Sertoma training on InKind donations. A Sertoma club may receive donations, especially for events of goods or services. This is considered an InKind donation. Sertoma clubs holding fundraising events will, on occasion, be given goods that would normally have been purchased to make the event successful. This includes such items as food and beverage, facility needs, like rental fees and portable restrooms, or printing. These gifts help the fundraising event have less cash expense going against the cash revenues, allowing for more net cash for the need that is being raised for. The other kind of in-kind donations a Sertoma club may receive is in support of their sponsorships. This could include equipment for hearing screenings, or another common example are donations of goods used in service, such as putting a wheelchair ramp at a home. The club could receive wood, paint, etc. In-kind donations are required to be included in the club's financial statements. This is done by recording the fair market value of the item received as a contribution in revenue. Usually a line item for in-kind donation is recommended. And recording the value as an expense where it would be placed if the club would have had to pay for the goods. The value of the in-kind gift is included in the gross revenue calculations for determination of which 990 the club must file. If the club files a 990 or 990EZ, the amounts are included in the revenue amounts listed. For example, the club received a donation of hot dogs for their food booth at the local festival. The fair market value of the hot dogs is easy to determine, as you can see how much they are sold for by the business they were donated from. But the club could receive a handcrafted quilt for a silent auction. The value of the item truly cannot be determined because there is no true market setting the prices. The club would have to zero value on their books unless the club knows the exact value of the materials used in the creation of the quilt, not including labor. If the club knows the value of the exact materials, this is the value the club would use on their financial statements and tax returns. Now that we have discussed how the club records the value of the in-kind donation on the club's financial statements and tax returns, we must discuss how the club is required to recognize your donor. Thanking your donor is a very important part of the club's function in the community. Good community relations is part of making a Sertoma club successful. In-kind donations have the same benefit to Sertoma clubs as cash donations. For this reason, the club needs to recognize the donors in the same way they do cash donations, including letters of thanks. If the club uses a recognition listing of event sponsors, the in-kind donor should be recognized in the category of the fair market value of the donation. In thanking a donor, the club must state the item that was gifted and the date of the gift. It is always nice to note how the gift helped the club in its support of the community. Tell the club's story. Unlike the club's financial statements and tax returns, IRS regulations prohibit a nonprofit from valuing an in-kind donation, and a value should not be included on the recognition note, the thank you letter. Let's look at the previous examples and see how the scenarios are recognized. The club received the donation of hot dogs for their food booth. The club would not put a value on the thank you letter to the business, but would put the business in the sponsor listing at the level of the fair market value of the hot dogs. The business itself would then be allowed to use their cost of the hot dogs under the charitable contributions line on their tax return. For the handmade quilt received for the silent auction, the club would not be allowed to put a value on the thank you letter to the individual. The individual would then determine the value for their personal tax return. Many of you have probably come across this when doing personal donations, such as used clothing to the local charity. The charity gives you a note that you donated items on a particular day on a pre-printed form they hand you. They do not list the items or value them. It is up to you to value what you donated. There are cases where someone may donate an item to the club that has no value and is not considered an in-kind donation. This means they also should not be considered as sponsors of your club's event, as they gave you no value towards your event or community service activities. The most common example we see are local businesses giving a club coupons to be placed in participant giveaways. These have no cash value and only have any value to the participant if they choose to use them. To the business, this is marketing, not a charitable donation. There are times when it is okay to say no to an in-kind donation. In these cases, the club must determine if the item provides value to the club in providing services to the community or making their event better. Example, if a club is accepting in-kind donations for their event and a local restaurant donates food to be on site for participants, this is a great gift. The club does not have to cash outlay of the expense. Or say someone comes up to the club holding a walk and wants to donate a high-value purse to the club. The walk event does not have an auction scheduled. What value does this donation make to help the event be successful? The club would have to add on to the event, adding more work onto the volunteers without guarantee of benefit to the club. What happens when someone comes to the club with a donation, like a car? The potential donor has this car. They cannot sell it, no longer want to deal with the taxes and such. So they come to the club with this great plan to donate it to the club, with the club getting the proceeds as a donation. The burden moves from the donor to the club to now sell the car. Unless the club actually does its fundraising by accepting cars and selling them or fixing them, as there are a few charities that do, this is not something the club should accept. There are lots of rules and regulations on this type of transaction. Just remember, it is okay to say no to a donor. Just be very polite and explain why. For more information, see these available resources. Thank you.